The Ganga was brown silt swollen with flood waters. It overflows, inundating thousands of acres of rice. To the, to the north were jungles, great expanses of grass higher than a man's head, and unbroken except for an occasional clump of trees, the home of tigers, elephants, pythons, and cobras. Everywhere else there was flat land running to the horizon, but dotted here and there by the sacred banyan tree or by rows of packer trees shaped like elms and having thick twisted trunks. Hot, humid air was moving in from the southwest. Monkeys, some of them mothers with babies clinging to them and riding underneath, swung off trees, trees at the stations looking for food. The villages we passed had walls made of mud mixed with water and cow dung. Their peaked roofs were thatched. Bundles of grass tied with bamboo poles stretched across the rafters that day. The pumpkin vines that grew over them were in bloom, trailing streaks of yellow over drab walls. At one station, my routine of talking with the people was interrupted. As soon as I alighted, a group of young children gathered around me. They were selling baskets, hand woven reed basket with simple designs and patterns. They held the basket high, shouting words I did not know, but conveying unmistakably their desire. These were refugees, children. When partition between India and Pakistan was decreed, hundreds of thousands of people pulled up their roots and changed their residences. 9 million people left Pakistan and came to India, driven by the fear of religious fanaticism. They were poor people to start with. They were poorer as they began their long trek, for all they could carry was a bit of food and a few belongings. Soon they were out of food. A few days after they started, they began to fall by the wayside from the weakness of hunger and died where they fell. The children selling baskets were sons and daughters of these refugees. They or their parents or relatives had gathered in the cities, setting up stalls, manufacturing simple articles, trying to make a living in market already overcrowded. They lived in clothes and grass sheds that lined the streets. The peasants among these refugees had been accustomed to little all their lives, for the annual income of an agricultural family does not exceed on an average 100 dollars a year. The average unskilled laborer makes 30 cents a day or less than $2 a week. There is one meal a day, an onion, a piece of bread, a bowl of pulse with milk, perhaps a bit of goat cheese, no tea, no coffee, no fat, no sweets, no meat. $100 a year is not $2 a week, yet even that small amount is hard to earn by selling baskets to people too poor to buy them. That no doubt is the reason these little children descended on me like locusts. I, an American, was doubtless the most promising market they had seen. I bought one tiny basket for a few annas, another fruit basket for a bit more, a beautiful waste paper basket for a rupee, a lovely swing basket for a rupee, a few fans for an anna or two apiece. My arms were filled and I had not spent 50 cents. The children passed in shouting their wares. I was a prisoner, completely surrounded, unable to move. The most delicate, aggressive vendor was a beautiful girl of 9 right in front of me. She had a lovely basket with a handle, and she wanted a rupee and a half for it, or about 30 cents. She was an earnest pleader. There was tears in her eyes. She pleaded and begged in tones that would wring any heart. My arms were full. I had no room let along any need for another basket. Balancing my basket and fence on my left arm, I reached into my right coat pocket and got a handful of change, perhaps 15 cents in all, which I deposited in the basket that the young girl had held imploringly before me. I tried to explain that I could not buy the basket, but extended the gratitude as a substitute. I realized at once what offense I had given. The child of 9, dressed in rags and on the edge of starvation, raised her chin, reached into the basket, and with all the pride and graciousness of a lady, handed the money back to me. There was only one thing I could do. I bought the basket. She wiped her eyes, smiled, and dashed down the platform, headed for some grass hut that would have at least 30 cents that night. I told this story to Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. I told him it was one reason I had fallen in love with India. The people I saw in India, those in the village as well as those in high office, have both pride and lively sense of decency and citizenship. They also have a passion for independence. This beautiful child, born in squalor and poverty, uneducated in both grammar and manners, had given me a glimpse of the warm soul of India. You all students are advised to listen the video carefully and note down all difficult words. If you have any query, you can ask me in the comment box, and I will provide the question and answer of this lesson later. Okay, thank you.